We want to thank you for joining us to listen to your ideas about police reform. In just a few minutes, we're going to give information about the Police Reform Collaborative. But first, we'd like you to know that this webinar is being recorded so that people can review it later.
We are joined this evening by elected officials who are here. This forum is not a dialogue, so they will not be responding to your comments or questions, but they are here to listen to your ideas about police reform. I will introduce who we have with us this evening. We have Barrington Atkins from DC Dutchess County Legislature, Rob Rollison, Mayor, Sarah Salem, Council Member at Large, Yvonne Flowers, Council Member, Natasha Cherry, Council Member, Felicia Watson, City of Poughkeepsie School Board President, and Under Sheriff Kurt Imperati from the Dutchess County Sheriff's Office is also on the call, and other police leadership are also. Thank you for being here to listen this evening. A special thank you also to our ASL interpreters from Taconic Resources for Independence. Kate, Diane, and Pam, thank you for your services tonight. So we're going to talk a little bit about why we are here this evening. Both the president and the governor have issued executive orders that require police reform. Governor Cuomo's Executive Order 203 requires every municipality that has a police agency in New York State to create a police reform plan. You can see these executive orders on the Dutchess County website, dutchessny.gov/police reform. Each municipality, village, town, city, and/or county with a police agency, including the Dutchess County Sheriff's Office, must create a plan that covers all of the policy areas in Executive Order 203. The county is leading a collaborative process that includes municipal leaders, police agencies, criminal justice stakeholders, and community stakeholders to review research, best practices, and community feedback to create a county plan that can be used by individual municipalities with police agencies to inform their plan. This meeting is part of this collaborative process. Municipalities can use all, some, or none of the county's plan. It will be up to each municipality to decide what is included in that municipality's plan. Once the municipality has their draft plan, they must get public comment on their plan, create a local law or resolution to adopt and implement the plan, and send the plan to the director of the New York State Budget Office by April 1st, 2021. For more information on the Dutchess County Police Reform and Modernization Collaborative, including the executive orders, please go to dutchessny.gov/police reform. The purpose of tonight's forum is a listening session to hear your specific ideas and suggestions about police reform. We have invited elected officials and police leadership to hear your feedback. However, again, it is not a dialogue session where they will respond. Speakers who have registered and indicated that they want to speak will be given speaking priority. If there is time left, we will ask anyone else who would like to speak to raise their hand and moderators will call on you. You may also send your comments through the website, dutchessny.gov/police reform. Again, sessions are recorded and they will be posted on the same page that you registered, dutchessny.gov/police reform. Please go to the community forums page, the blue box at the bottom of the page, and links to recorded forums will be located at the bottom. All of the feedback that we gather will be used to inform the county's plan and may inform your municipality's plan if your village, town, city has a police agency. So now we're going to go over a few of the ground rules for this evening. Speakers will have 3 minutes each. When you reach 3 minutes, we will gently ask you to wrap up. If there is more that you would like to say after your time is up, please use one of the other options, including submitting your comments through the website. Please state your name, and if you are representing an organization, the name of the organization and where you are from. Please refrain from naming specific individuals. So the question again that we are asking you all to answer today is, what are your specific ideas for police reform?
Thanks, Bailey. So I'll be calling on speakers, and once we've gotten through the list of people who have indicated they want to speak, we'll ask people to raise their hands if they would like to also speak, and give us your feedback, specific ideas for police reform. So we'll start with Takura Sophia Blaze. Takura, are you here? Okay, if she comes, we'll come back to her. Eli King. Eli King. Okay. Shanier Davis. Shanier Davis. Okay. Next, we have Jeffrey Snyder.
Hi, my name is Jeffrey Schneider and I live at 80 North Water Street in the First Ward. I'm also a member of Engine and I regularly attend CJC meetings and have been involved in police reform efforts in the city of Poughkeepsie, including supporting the Right to Know Act, the Civilian Review Board, and improving the complaint process. I recognize that policing is a difficult profession these days, particularly since the summer. But I'm hoping that we can use this moment of crisis to act and make some significant changes. To a large extent, the heart of police reform now revolves around the implementation of procedural justice. Procedural justice is a set of recommendations for building trust and nurturing legitimacy. Taking steps to promote trust and legitimacy is actually the first pillar of the Presidential Task Force on 21st Century Policing, which outlines a lot of the principles of procedural justice. As I've said in the past, I applaud the efforts of the City of Poughkeepsie Police to introduce procedural justice. It is forward-thinking and rooted in evidence-based research, as well as in national conversations about how to make police forces both more effective and less prone to committing incidents that harm others, and as we've been responding to this summer. Nevertheless, despite the important changes that Chief Pape and his staff have made, to some extent, city residents have been getting procedural justice light, where only some parts of procedural justice have been enacted, while other components have been ignored or not implemented or only implemented in part. For instance, it took 3 years of conversation with the city police and finally a common council vote to implement the Right to Know Act, which requires police officers to introduce themselves and give residents they stop a business card, even though this effort is very much in the spirit of procedural justice. A more robust complaint process, including a civilian review board, is the next step. Among the report's recommendations for building trust is recommendation 1.2, and I cite this because it's applicable to what's been going on this summer, which is that law enforcement agencies should acknowledge the role of policing in past and present injustice and discrimination and how it is a hurdle to the promotion of community trust. This is something I would like to see from all police departments in Dutchess County, including the sheriff's office. Pillar 2, meanwhile, addresses policy and oversight. Recommendation 2.8 advocates, quote, some form of civilian oversight of law enforcement is important in order to strengthen trust with the community. Every community should define the appropriate form and structure of civilian oversight to meet the needs of that community. As one person who testified at one of the task force's policy and oversight listening sessions, much like this, and so I will repeat it here, said that, quote, civilian oversight alone is not sufficient to gain legitimacy. Without it, however, it is difficult, if not impossible, for the police to maintain the public's trust.
So Jeffrey,
Finally,
we're just going to ask you to wrap up.
great. The only other thing I would add is that I really hope the county helps the city police department to diversify its force.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Corinne Fumarello. Okay, Corinne, we're ready for you, but you're still on mute. Yeah, we can't hear you yet. You're still on mute.
I just wanted to listen this evening.
Okay, so
Thank you.
you're welcome. Next, we have Shannon Wong.
Hi there, can you hear me?
We can.
Great. I'm Shannon Wong. I'm an active member of End the New Jim Crow in Poughkeepsie, and I'm the director of the Hudson Valley chapter of the ACLU. I'd like to use this opportunity to publicly thank the police department, the mayor, and members of the city council for supporting the Right to Know Act, which goes into effect on October 15th and will hopefully increase transparency and trust between the police and the community. As Jeff mentioned, the Right to Know Act will require police officers to identify themselves, explain the reason for the stop, and provide a business card. I noticed that the city police department has already put this requirements of this bill in their policies, which are available online. And I'd also like to thank them for taking the proactive step of having their policies online. I've said in the past that the Poughkeepsie Police Department is open to change, and they are very willing to work with the community, to listen to the community, and they have shown that to be true during this difficult time. There are some important programs that are happening in the city and at the police department, and I'd like to acknowledge and appreciate the BEATS team, the Crisis Stabilization Center, and the new mental health worker. These are very important and significant steps toward creating alternatives to the police for behavioral and mental health problems. The police are not mental health counselors. While they may be well-intentioned and talented law enforcement officers, few, if any, have comprehensive training and skills that are needed to provide a safe and appropriate response to those in crisis. Moreover, the presence of armed and uniformed officers can quickly escalate crisis situations. In worst-case scenarios, officers can use force in response to a person in crisis, resulting in unnecessary violence and occasionally death. To those who really are simply in the need of care and the support of trained health professionals such as social workers and psychologists. And when the person in crisis is a person of color, that risk that the police use force increases. The problem of police violence is particularly acute for people with psychiatric disabilities, and too often family members who call the police for help with a relative end up seeing force used on their loved one. But we also have a crisis in mental health treatment in the United States. Our mental health services and supports have been decimated by years of disinvestment, and we must consider shifting our investment in law enforcement into community supports. Reform-oriented leaders, and I think you can include the city of Poughkeepsie in that, have recommended and acknowledged that this is not a place for the police. The police should consider shifting funding from the police to building on the work that they already have to fully fund a civilian mobile crisis response team that deploys health professionals to aid individuals who are struggling with behavioral and mental health issues. I'm sure you have heard of the CAHOOTS program in Oregon, and I hope you will consider such a program. And finally, I'd like to express my support for credible messenger programs such as SNUG and also for the planned youth center. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Shannon. Next, we have Elijah Appleson.
Hello. My name is, can you hear me? Sorry. Yeah.
Yes.
My name is Elijah Appleson. I'm a member of the New Jim Crow Action Network, and I am citizen, and I'm speaking as a resident of Poughkeepsie. I want to thank the city of Poughkeepsie, like Shannon Wong and Jeffrey Schneider did, for passing the Right to Know Act, but now we need to ensure that it's actually upheld by the police, that the officers who do not abide by it are held accountable. That's a critical part of it. Secondly, I think that there are 3 other reforms that need to occur in the city of Poughkeepsie, including passing the Civilian Review Board, defunding the police, and increasing mental health responders. Sorry about that. Passing the Civilian Review Board. The Civilian Review Board will allow the community to keep the police accountable in ways that are incredibly important. 2, defunding the police is critical to decreasing the police supremacy in our community. If we reinvest this money into community through mental health programs and academic funding, imagine just what that money could do for the community. Imagine if just 50% of the money that is allocated to police was allocated to community centers and education. 3, mental health professionals. We have to make sure that mental health professionals respond to incidents instead of the police in most cases. Having police respond can exacerbate the things and make people with mental health problems at risk to murder by the police. Finally, while reform is very critical, I also think that we need to focus on abolition. Police do not create safer communities. Policing is a form of social control to regulate the poor and people of color. Police abolition is the only way to create true change. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elijah. Darrett Roberts.
Hello, my name is Darrett Roberts, I live in Poughkeepsie, New York. I'm a member of Engine, DCPA, and a number of groups in the Hudson Valley and Poughkeepsie is particularly. What I'm going to speak about is I applaud the mayor and I applaud the common council for passing the Right to Know Act. It was a very important first step in getting more community involvement, and I feel also helps the police generally. What I feel is what's going on is a lack of communication and mistrust between the police and certain members of the community. And what we need more importantly is it that, like Sean and Jeff Snyder so put it, we need more trust in the community by the police, and the police need to trust the community more, because we all are in this together and we need to help each other. But the only way that can happen if you have that mutual respect. And people of color feel very impacted at times that they're not getting that respect from the police department. And I think they need more involvement to get that going. And I also support the Civil Review Board, because that will give people the feel that they have a say in what's going on in the community, and the involvement in the police force with how to make them better able to serve the community. And while some people use the word defund, I like the word reinvest. And that means reinvest in youth centers, more education opportunities for our students, and help trouble students stay out of the way. And what happened, that tragic thing happened with that 15-year-old. I think he could have been helped, and whoever, the person that did this may have been helped if he had more people involved in his life. Because I think it takes all of us. It takes the parent, it takes the community, it takes the police department to get involved with us, because that's the only way to help the city. So, but like I said, I applaud the right, the Right to Know Act. I think it's a very good step. And I think the Civil Review Board would make it much healthier and easier, not only for the community who would know what's going on in the police department, what happened there, but also help the police, because it would then stem a escalation or misrumors that have been applied. Thank you again.
Thank you, Darrett. Next, we have Brian Robinson.
Hi, I'm Brian Robinson. I live on Montgomery Street. I'm a member of Engine and the Race Unity Circle, and I'm CEO of Equitable Future, Inc. The city of Poughkeepsie has over 4 times the representation of African Americans of the county as a whole, almost half of the Black population of Dutchess County. And so particular focus needs to be employed here. That unbalanced concentration should also be a consideration as our residents move about the county in their daily lives, particularly in adjacent municipalities. So reform adopted here should be looked at in our adjacent municipalities. A larger discussion would involve how to address the historical wrongs that have resulted in Dutchess County's modern segregated landscape. And I'd hope that discussion can evolve in earnest from the current one in the future. Pertaining specifically to police reform, 3 minutes is not enough. So I'll address our status as a city in dealing with the executive order. In just over a month, we'll be past the halfway point, the timeline provided by the governor. And the only change completely relevant to the executive order in that time has been a legislative proposal prepared by private citizens to establish a civilian review board. An invitation to participate in the drafting of that legislation was declined by the mayor's office, and the legislation itself has in no way been publicly supported by the administration, despite it fitting as perfectly as possible portions of the EO and guidance regarding oversight. Since the executive order, the primary tactics by the administration have been the 2 most often employed to refute effective change: stalling and changing the subject. It's just unacceptable and needs to stop right now. We need people to lead this effort who understand and respect the importance and urgency of the circumstances surrounding the directives. Inability to comprehend the scope of possible change or recognizing those possibilities and deliberately disregarding them necessitates direct oversight of local stakeholders who embody these qualities, and perhaps additionally oversight by the county government. Because of the aforementioned stalling and changing the subject, it's now up to private citizens to form a coalition to review the order and tackle it in earnest. The other thing we need to understand here is legislation versus administrative policy, that is legal bounds and responsibilities versus government and agency leeway. When the administration ignores charter and code, which is the law, as was done in forming the Procedural Justice Committee, not to mention so far ignoring the directives and spirit of an executive order, what chance do we stand of any administration willfully upholding anything less than law? The Civilian Review Board legislation preceded by the Right to Know Act are a small piece of the puzzle, but a full legislative package needs to be arrived at, and it needs to be done so by people who collectively understand these mechanisms and respect the imperative nature of the task at hand.
So Brian, we're going to ask you to wrap up.
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next we have Eloise Maxey. Okay, and I think we're trying to unmute her. She's still on mute.
Miss Eloise, if you dial *6, you should be unmuted.
Okay.
Can you hear me now, Jody?
We can hear you now, yes.
Okay, good evening. Eloise Maxey from the Northern Dutchess NAACP. Police reform is needed and long overdue. Over the years, I have a file filled with police brutality and misconduct complaints against the Poughkeepsie police force, and most of them are with the same officers. There is a need for a civilian review board to help police the police, because far too long have they been allowed to police themselves. Body cams, dash cams, more training, psychological evaluations, diversity, sensitivity, and cultural competence is also needed. These are things that will ingratiate the officer in many ways, and it will also start a foundation to building a better and more just community for all. We also could use mental health counselors. When there's a person that's having a mental health episode, it would be good to have a mental health official to go with the officer on complaints of this type. Thank you.
Thank you, Eloise. Next, we have Earl Brown. And we just need you to unmute, Earl.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Well, good evening. My name is Earl Brown. I live in city of Poughkeepsie, and I'm a member of Engine, and so many of my colleagues have spoken before me, and there's really nothing I can add to what they've said. I urge all concerned parties, though, to approach this in earnest and with the aim of improving relationships in the city of Poughkeepsie. I think a community review board is a first step. The Right to Know Act was a good step, but these are steps towards a larger process. The value in this is that we have transparency, because so many things are done and it's covered up, and people know this, and it creates a distrust and animosity towards the police department. So I urge all parties to be honestly engaged in this, and there's so much good information out there that we can draw upon. Thank you.
Thank you, Earl. So now we want to ask those people who would like to speak. Some said they weren't sure. So we'd like to ask people to raise their hands, and then we can call on you if you've decided you do want to speak. Okay, so the first we're going to have Matthew Carroll.
Hello, I just wanted to call in to say that I do support the Civilian Review Board, and the Right to Know Act is a good step in the right direction. And I'm still getting educated on all these issues, but I think there's a lot more work to be done. And I thank the city of Poughkeepsie for what they've been doing. And if there's any way I can participate and help out, someone please reach out to me and let me know. And thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, Matthew. Next, we'll have Isis Benitez. Isis?
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, my name is Isis Benitez. I work for Planned Parenthood of Greater New York. I'm a city of Poughkeepsie resident. I'm based in Poughkeepsie. I'm a part of a bunch of things. A few being Engine and Race Unity Circle, a bunch of other activist groups. And I just wanted to say that to just be a person of color, I haven't experienced much issues, but my brothers have. To be a person of color near Poughkeepsie, near the city of Poughkeepsie police is just so terrifying. I think that police reform is long overdue, and I'm only 21 years old, and I'm seeing that from all the older people I've heard from. I think it's very long overdue. I think police, the defund the police is long overdue. The Civilian Review Board is long overdue. I had a friend tell me that she traveled from ATL to New York, and she got stopped by the police, and she was terrified. In Poughkeepsie, she was getting close to home, and she got stopped by the police, and she was terrified. And it's like, and she's a person of color too. It's scary to like think that we people of color have to really hide behind what? Hide behind what? We can't even hide behind anything. The police are policing themselves. They're not even taking time to understand the situation, or taking time to understand a lot of situations. And we as citizens are just getting looked at as little dolls, I would say, or little puppets. And it's just getting out of hand. It's getting scary coming from a person of color, seeing firsthand for my brothers, for my friends, for everyone, for a lot of people who I know. So I think that there's serious change that is needed to happen. And that is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Isis. So if you'd like to speak and answer the question, what are your specific ideas for police reform? Please raise your hand and we'll call on you. Your specific ideas for police reform. Okay, Marina Tarkos.
Good evening. My name is Marina Tarkos. I'm a City of Poughkeepsie police officer, and I reside on the Upper South in the 8th Ward for the last 10 years. First, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. I am part of also our Procedural Justice Committee. Since we're limited here on time, I'm just going to quickly go through some bullet points and facts that I think we need to address before we can move forward with the piece of legislation addressing the Civilian Review Board. I would first like to make clear that I have zero issue with the oversight and accountability. I do not fear nor have anything to fear in its creation. I do take issue and fear the current state of this legislation that is currently laid before us. Everyone knows how dangerous bad legislation can be for the community and state. To my knowledge, this was written by one person from INGEN and presented by Councilman Mentis. It does not state who wrote it, where the research or information came from, and if they are trying to emulate a current successful review board from somewhere in our country or the state of New York. No one else has been invited to help make this important piece of legislation. No one has also been formally asked for their opinion or input on it. It was falsely stated in previous meetings that the Procedural Justice Committee was asked for opinion or insight on it, and we were not. We've only had 2 meetings since it came out, and we've been barely able to touch on it. Our last meeting was our introduction to Governor Cuomo's request for the police department to review New York State Police Reform and Reinvention Collaborative Plan, and we've been tasked with that to do and have ready for public comment so it can go through for April 1st. I appreciate the concern of the council and the community and activists for police oversight, but my understanding is we do not have high levels of complaints, and maybe you will say that may be representative of a problem in itself. I do know that the issue has been addressed by making sure the community knows how to go about making formal complaints and that they can now make formal complaints online, making it more accessible for everyone. The council with the PD also put in place wearing body cameras for transparency and oversight and a hope to bridge the gap in trust with our community. The body cameras went into effect on January 1st of this year. The council and the police also worked together to pass the Right to Know Act, which was to bridge the gap with any issue with the public not knowing how to make a complaint, as well as giving the information they need to know why they had police interaction and how to go about making a complaint or accommodation. This brand new act just went into effect on September 21st. We've also hired an intensive case manager for Mental Health America, who's working with us and going on calls in the city as emergencies are actively happening. The fact is this police department has been at the forefront of progressive policies and is leading example of how a police department should act, function, and be a collaborative and functioning member of the community. No one in the city has yet to see if any of these new policies have been effective or if they're doing the job you hoped for when they were put in place. Since implementing them, there's been Have there been any civilian complaints that we could not thoroughly investigate with the use of body cameras? Has anyone had a chance to be handed our new right to know business cards? Why is there a rush to keep reinventing the wheel before anyone has had the chance to see if our new and current efforts are working? I'm not going to accuse or insult anyone, but my fear is based on the new review of my review of the legislation and others, the willingness of the council to move forward with this current version, and the appearance of an unwillingness to allow anyone else to change this version, that the council as a group or its individuals have not done their homework. Otherwise,
Marina, we're going to ask you to wrap up.
Shall do. Otherwise, I feel you would see and understand the police departments and officers' concerns. We just want to see a community inclusive group representing everybody to work together to come up with a proper piece of legislation that everyone can agree upon. And this could be another thing that we could put in place to bridge that trust bridge and transparency that everybody is looking for, so everybody can understand that this police department is there for them and always has been. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Marina. Next, we have Mary Beth Rubenstein.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Hi, my name is Mary Beth Rubenstein, and I am actually a resident in the town of Poughkeepsie, but I border the city of Poughkeepsie, and I spend a lot of time in the city of Poughkeepsie. So, and I wanted to echo what other people have said. Thank you for passing the Right to Know Act. Yes, its enforcement is important. I think that's great that the police department is incorporating mental health professionals on handling cases. I think we should see more of that. I think a civilian review board is important. I'm not sure in what form and in what detail it will take, but to have one, yes, is important. I want to say that, yes, of course, all parts of the community should be heard on this very, very important matter. But I would say that some parts of our community have long had their input valued in a way that other parts of the community have not. And so let's just consider that as we go forward as well, and really make sure that we're amplifying and elevating the voices who traditionally have not been valued or perhaps listened to. And then finally, I don't know if this is totally related, but I just want to say that I am against the $200 million new jail. And I think that the money could really go toward a much greater reform of our criminal justice approach in Dutchess County and in the city of Poughkeepsie. And thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Other people who would like to speak? The question we're asking are, what are your specific ideas for police reform? And you can, if you haven't spoken and you want to reiterate something you've already heard, you agree with something you've heard, you have some different ideas or new ideas, please feel free to raise your hand. Okay, Eli King.
All right, can you hear me?
We can.
All right, hi, I'm Eli King. I'm a resident of the city of Poughkeepsie. In response to the officer who just spoke, I'd like to say, as I believe I've mentioned in some city council meetings, body cameras are nationally have been proven to do just about nothing to decrease police misconduct. I think that we're all aware that there exists body camera footage of police murdering unarmed civilians. I agree with the woman who spoke before me that the new county jail is not something that should be being pursued. The vast majority of people incarcerated in Dutchess County Jail, which is currently well under capacity, are in there on misdemeanor charges. And so both as a city and as a county, I think we need to be reallocating funds from policing and incarceration towards the community. Just and I'm aware that I see the mayor and Yvonne Flowers here, speaking to city government, but on the county level, I know that the Stabilization Center got their funding cut recently, while a $200 million jail was passed. The city level, I believe that just about every municipal department but the police had, was it 15% funding cut? We have 90 officers in the city of Poughkeepsie. It's a 5 square mile city with a little over 30,000 people. 90% of the time when I see cops out about, they're just harassing homeless people. 75% of those officers do not live in the city of Poughkeepsie. I know that the PBA contract expires at the end of this year. I would like to see that contract renegotiated with, in conjunction with a civilian review board that, as proposed, I would like to see language in the contract that lays out a solid process for police accountability. I would like to see our money, but the city budget reallocated towards the needs of the community and not, paying the salaries of these armed cops who don't even live in Poughkeepsie. That's pretty much all I got. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Eli. Okay, other people who would like to speak? Question we're asking is, what are your specific ideas for police reform? Perhaps you want to reiterate something someone's already said. You agree with other speakers. You have something else to add to what other speakers have said. Please feel free to raise your hand. You can also submit comments on the website at dutchessny.gov/police reform. Okay, Matthew Brill Carlett.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Matthew Brill Carlett. I live in Poughkeepsie on Clover Street in the First Ward. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, all of you. I would just like to keep this short, but I want to reiterate what a lot of callers have previously said. I think the Right to Know Act is definitely a step in the right direction, as is the Civilian Review Board. I also support what one previous caller mentioned, reinvesting in our community. And I think that we should, as our community thinks about further reforms to policing, we should be careful not to pass reforms that really dramatically increase the police budget, because that's going to not help in terms of being able to provide more money for social services and other things that are really needed. So we should definitely make changes, but focus on decreasing the budget and then moving some of that money where it can do even more good. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Matthew. Next, we have Kevin Carswell.
Hi, Jody. Can you hear me?
We can.
I'm Kevin Carswell. I'm actually a resident of Fishkill. I spoke at the Wappingers Fishkill Beacon Forum, so I'm not going to be redundant here. I just had an additional thought that I didn't include in the comments that I submitted. I've attended or watched a number of these forums, and I've noticed that the speakers are primarily advocates for the people that are really struggling with the problem. We clearly saw in the listening town hall that there are issues in Dutchess County, and there are issues in the city of Poughkeepsie that need to be addressed. And there's a big issue with trust. So it's not surprising a lot of the people that do not trust the police are not coming to these forums and not speaking out because they don't trust the system. So I would just urge the coalition and the people that are really driving the reform to think about other ways to reach out to the community, think about other forums where people can have a voice, leverage other organizations in the community that maybe can reach out to members of the community to speak out. So change will only happen when you really hear from everyone, particularly the people that are most affected. So that's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Other people who would like to speak? The issue we're talking about tonight is, what are your specific ideas for police reform? The ideas that are discussed here and comments that are submitted are being organized to help inform the county's plan and may inform other municipalities' plan. We just heard about ways to get feedback from people who may not be speaking at the forums. In addition to the comments on the website, we are looking to speak with groups individually and would love to know your ideas about groups that we should be talking to. We already are developing a list, but we want to make sure we get to talk to as many people as possible about this process. So if you have ideas about who we should be speaking to, please submit those ideas either to Ken Roman, kroman@dutchessny.gov. You can send them to DC Human Rights at dutchessny.gov or submit them through the website on the comment form. We are looking to get feedback from people around the county. That's why we're doing so many forums, and recognize that not everyone will come to a public forum. So we're open to that and look forward to speaking to other groups about their ideas about police reform. So anyone else who'd like to speak tonight, please feel free to raise your hand. The comment form through the website, just want to clarify that that is an anonymous comment form. So you do not need to give your contact information in order to submit your comments. Anyone else who'd like to give us your ideas about police reform, please raise your hand. All right, so we're going to look to wrap up. As I just mentioned, if anyone would like to give comments, they can submit those comments through the website, dutchessny.gov, police reform. We encourage you to go to the website for updates and information and to reach out to your municipality for questions about their status or their process. If you do have questions about the county-wide process, you can reach out to Ken Roman, who's chair of the collaborative. His email is kroman@dutchessny.gov. It's also listed on the website. We want to thank everyone for their participation tonight, including our American Sign Language interpreters from Taconic Resources for Independence. The recording for this session will also be on the website, dutchessny.gov, police reform on the community forums page. Kelly's going to announce our next dates for the Spanish-speaking forums.
So we have 2 forums remaining, both are Spanish language forums. The next is Thursday, October 1st from 6 to 8 p.m. And the next is Saturday, October 3rd from 3 to 5 p.m. These are county-wide forums. They're not specific to any geographic area. Registration and all forum dates are listed on the website, dutchessny.gov/police reform/community forums. Again, thank you everyone for your participation. Thank you for being here, for sharing and listening. We appreciate your feedback.